I say this every time, but I think this has been a pretty bad year for movies. Not many films left much of an impression on me this year. Even if they were good, they just weren't good enough to be on my best of list. Now, as always, I didn't get to see every movie this year, Marty Supreme being one of them, mainly because we had a snowstorm that was preventing me from seeing it, so it won't be on this list. The Housemaid won't be on it either. I know, I'm shocked too. Such a tragedy. So, without any further ado, let's get this list started. Number 6. Ballerina. Yeah, I am as surprised as you are that this ended up on the list, and there is a reason for that, which I'll explain in a minute. Now, when this movie was announced, I thought this was a pointless spin-off. Why make a spin-off about a character we know nothing about when you have a perfectly set up character in John Wick 4? A character who many people like, has got a direct link to John Wick himself, is played by a real-life martial artist and action movie legend, and he had a mid-credit scene setting up his next film. It just seemed like a no-brainer to make a movie about Kane, but it seemed like a clueless decision to make this, a movie that seemed like it was going to follow the typical girl power message. But to my surprise, it ended up being a hugely entertaining action movie. The action was so creative and had so much weapons and takedowns, and at times, the film was gorier than the previous John Wick films. Ana de Armas felt like such a strange casting choice to me. Her best work was in Knives Out, but I have been just so-so with the rest of her performances. But I thought she was decent in this. And this movie is actually an anti-girl power preaching movie, because unlike those films, this film acknowledges that a woman of her size and stature cannot possibly take down grown men in a fist fight. So they tell her to think outside of the box and find other ways to match their strength. And she does. She even gets her ass kicked several times, and they show that she is by no means a John Wick clone. John Wick could easily clear a room, but Eve really struggles and even takes a lot of hits as well. A big complaint I have, though, is that she gets stabbed really bad at times, and we don't see her have a single visit from the doctor or anything. She just keeps going. Even John Wick had to get his wounds attended to, but not Ana de Armas apparently. At one point there's an explosion, and this woman dies, but she somehow survives, and again, keeps going. So that girl power element is in there. It's not completely gone. And the story is pretty generic. And they incorporated John Wick into the movie a fair amount. It wasn't just a cheap cameo or something like a lot of us expected it to be. Now, Norman Reedus is in the film for a scene or two, and I have a strong hunch as to why he's barely in the film. You see, this film was directed by Len Wiseman, but had significant reshoots by Chad Stahelski, who directed the previous John Wick movies, and he came back to reshoot practically most of the film, especially the action sequences to make them better and more accurate to the style of John Wick. And I bet you that originally the movie was supposed to have Ana de Armas team up with Norman Reedus to rescue his daughter, but during the reshoots, they must have swapped him out with Keanu to really level up the movie and give it a better chance at the box office. And that's why he ended up being put out of commission, only to wake up in the hospital. And it turns out Keanu didn't give the movie the extra push that it needed either. So yeah, this was a surprisingly good movie. It is definitely the best full-on action film I have seen this year. And the main reason this film took a spot on the list is because I watched it at home on my 4K projector with the volume cranked up to the loudest I have ever set it to. And it was an amazing experience. It was downright cinema worthy, and the sound design in this film is awesome. And that's why this movie has gotten a place on this list. A good home theater system really elevated this film, in particular the fight choreography and that sound design. I actually wouldn't have minded if this spin-off got a sequel, but the movie flopped at the box office, making only a tiddly $137 million on an $80 to $90 million budget, which most likely ended up costing a heck of a lot more with those reshoots and the inclusion of Keanu Reeves. So it wouldn't surprise me if the actual budget for this movie was $150 million, excluding marketing. So despite the near identical cliffhanger to John Wick Chapter 2, I can confidently say that she won't be getting a sequel. But on the plus side, she is getting a spot on this list. Number 5. Weapons. I was not really a fan of director Zach Cregger's Barbarian. I thought it was just okay. But this movie I really liked. This movie intrigued me with its very first trailer, and I was hooked throughout the entire thing. It's dark, it's intriguing, it's surprisingly funny. Josh Brolin was really good in the movie, and so was Amy Madigan. The movie is split into segments, and although this storytelling technique is nothing new, I really enjoyed it. Even the segment that wasn't really necessary in the end was also fun. I just wish the final death of the movie would have lasted longer and was slower. slower. In fact, I even made reference to something similar in my review of the It Welcome to Derry finale. I also wish that Gladys would have gotten a segment in the film because I just had way too many questions about her. And these aren't questions that you can just put down to the less you know, the scarier it is. In actuality, not knowing made me not buy the story as much. There was also some weird dream sequences that the characters would have that made no sense outside of giving the audience a jump scare. So it's by no means a perfect movie, and you can check out my review if you want to know my more detailed thoughts on the film, but the mystery in this movie really put me on the edge of my seat. The performances, especially from Josh Brolin, were great. The tension was great, you had a really good villain, and even the kid in the movie did a really good job. It is definitely one of the more memorable movies I've seen this year, and that's why it definitely earns a spot on this list. Number 4. The Long Walk. This is a Hunger Games and Squid Games type story, which is directed by the same guy who made The Hunger Games, Francis Lawrence. Unlike The Hunger Games or Battle Royale or Squid Games, this deadly game consists of walking, and if you stop for too long, you get shot. As far as all of these games go, that sounds so boring, and it is. But what makes it so good is the characters. You really care for these people. Lookalike Jacob from Welcome to Derry is here, the new Karate Kid is here, Jojo Rabbit is here, and many others. And they're all really likable characters. Even the more problematic characters you end up feeling for at some point. And you always feel bad when any of them die. Something interesting about this movie is that you don't have a single participant who plays dirty and tries to cheat or become the villain, and there are a couple people who really could have been. The best characters in this movie are our white guy and black guy, Raymond and Peter, and these two are the real heart of the movie, not only because of their personal reasons for being here, but also the way they interact with other people on the team. And as the walk drags on for hundreds and hundreds of miles, they slowly lose their composures, they fight and drift apart, they make up, they support one another, and they're even at risk of having themselves gunned down by trying to help other players, including each other. And due to the circumstances they are in, a lot of the characters become friends very quickly. This story was written by Stephen King, and although I don't know how close this is to the book, what I do know is that it is a simple story that really prioritizes character, and you downright despise the sick pricks that even made this game a thing. The movie also had a very unpredictable conclusion, and it really took me by surprise. I loved the way it ended, although I do question how one character was able to just walk away. You'll know what I mean if you've seen the film. But yeah, this was a really good movie. It was a nice surprise of a film, and it has definitely earned a spot on this list. Number 3. Companion. This is essentially a bottle film with a very smart twist. I don't want to spoil what it is, but it transforms the movie and makes it so much more interesting. I've seen this movie 2 or 3 times now, and it was great every time. And I like bottle movies like this, where the character has to gather whatever limited resources they can to survive against a group of people who are trying to kill them. And the twist that happens in the movie changes everything you think you saw. Seriously, this twist cannot be overstated. I won't spoil it, but I'll just say, it was a very good twist, and the movie constantly gives you clues about it long before it gets revealed. And once the survival part kicks in, it was so effective and really fun to watch. And all the actors do a great job, especially Jack Quaid. And Sophie Thatcher does a really good job as well. But I don't want to say any more. This was a highlight of the year for me, and that's why it takes a spot on this list. Number 2. Avatar 3. I was not looking forward to seeing Avatar 3 due to how long it was going to be, and I didn't think that an Avatar movie needed to be this long anymore. But after rewatching Avatar: The Way of Water in preparation for the third film, I found myself to like the second movie much more on my second viewing. And then I suddenly got excited to see the third movie, and to this movie's credit, it did not at all feel like a 3-hour and 17-minute film. The pacing of these films is something else. I don't know how James Cameron does it. The story has some interesting ideas going for it, the character arcs weren't deep, but seeing them navigate these difficult situations, and the fact that the army will potentially be able to breathe in Pandora made for some real high stakes. We also had evil Na'vi this time round, which was also something different. So even though there is a lot of the same here, there was some new things that I really enjoyed. The visuals, as you can imagine, are still fantastic. Although I was watching the movie in 3D, so I couldn't appreciate the finer details. Just like the second film, the pacing is amazing, I still like hanging out with the characters every movie, and I like Jake and his fatherly responsibilities and the relationship with his family. It feels like an old school family unit that modern day films just don't portray anymore. I personally grew up with with this kind of family unit, and I like that James Cameron keeps portraying it. And when the movie was over, I thought to myself, I actually wouldn't mind seeing a fourth film in the franchise, but only if it advances certain character arcs and story points. The Colonel had an interesting character arc which could be developed further, and I want more development for some of the other main characters. And the biggest compliment I can give it is that I actually considered watching this movie a second time in theaters. Yeah, a 3-hour and 17-minute movie. There is just something so hypnotic about these Avatar movies. As much as we complain about them, and I've complained about them plenty, they keep winning me over. And seeing as they consistently hit over $1 billion every single time, they seem to win audiences over too. And that's why it takes a top spot on this list. And the number one best movie of the year is... Demon Slayer: Infinity Castle. No movie this year has given me the impact that this film has. The movie is split into 3 arcs. The first arc was a little overly long, but the final 2 were great, especially the last one. What it manages to do for a long-time villain of this series is mind-blowing. The way it is able to manipulate your emotions and hatred towards this character was very clever, and I never would have seen it coming. The animation is amazing, the storytelling is great, the action scenes are mesmerizing, the character arcs are as wonderful as ever, and this is the only movie that I have seen twice in theaters this year. And it's the only movie that is still not released on digital or streaming yet. I mean, seriously, you can't see it in theaters anymore, and they still haven't released it. The only problem with this movie is its structure. There are a lot of flashbacks and exposition. This is a common trope with anime, but you really felt it in this movie, and it would bring the film to a halt when you wished it would have just continued. But on my second viewing, this became less of a problem. This is the most profitable anime movie to be released in the West, and has really showcased just how big anime has become. We are apparently going to be getting a live-action remake as well by Netflix, with another rumor saying that Tom Holland will be playing Tanjiro. Yeah, we'll worry about that when it comes closer to fruition. Nothing has been confirmed as of yet. But anyway, this was an excellent first installment in a planned trilogy of Demon Slayer movies. It didn't win the Golden Globes for Best Animated Feature, but it did win the #1 spot on my best movies list of 2025. Now, you guys won't agree with everything on this list, but hey, it is what it is. These are the movies that stood out to me the most this year. Although, I am sorry that one movie didn't make the list either. I wish it could have been on my list, but watch the Versus video, I explain everything in there. But in my defense, no superhero movies ended up on my best of list this year. And with that, another year gone. Thank you all so much for sticking with me throughout 2025. This was a really fun year, and I really appreciate your viewership and support. And here's to a fun 2026. There are a ton of interesting movies coming out this year, and I cannot wait to discuss them all with you. And a huge thanks to my patrons. You guys really do help keep the channel alive, and we even opened a Discord server in 2025, which gave me a direct link to many of you. And that was a really cool development for this channel and community. Now it's your turn. Be sure to comment below with your best movies lists, and stay tuned as next up is my top 10 worst movies of 2025. So until then, I will catch all of you very soon. Take care.